for Jason Summerlin.
How's it going, everyone? Yeah. I have no new material, so I'm just going to do a lot of give it up for moms. Who has a mom? No, I'm kidding. I like to think that that Ghost is still around, and they've just transitioned from a 12-year-old boy to a 12-year-old girl because they're very modern style ghosts. Doesn't sound like Jackie was super clear on how she helped the ghost transition, so there could be some ghost estrogen involved. I don't know. We talked last week, or I talked last week, about how, I don't talk to my dad a whole lot, and, there are times where, it felt like he just had closer relationships with people like Molly and Mary Jane. Those weren't other kids or friends of his, they were drugs. But truthfully, he really just did OxyContin, so no big deal. It was more blues than anything. But yeah, so we don't really talk a lot, and it's mainly because he's lived in an urn for the past 7 years. And I'm kind of grateful that he doesn't talk back nowadays, because if I come home and I'm like, man, how was your day? Was it pretty good? And he just kind of like, whoa, wasn't too good, like, I'd be pretty creeped out. The urn kind of like flapping, the lid, moving. Be pretty scary. Night of the Living Dad, not what I'm looking for. Not a big horror fan. But like when your parents die, you want to do things for them that they enjoy, right? So like some people will take their parents' ashes to like the Grand Canyon, or they'll like sprinkle some in the ocean if they really love to fish. Well, my dad really loved to smoke cigarettes, and so I was thinking it'd be a really good tribute if we just used his urn as an ashtray, so that he can always be with what he loves. Ashes to ashes, dad to dust. So yeah, just some thoughts that I had, and we talked a little bit about last week how I think that the people who work at the crematorium are maybe a lot like coke dealers, trying to like step on the product, put some extra baking soda in there to stretch like the ashes of your dead parent out, making sure everybody gets a little bit. You maybe argue over who gets more, like if that parent really loved you the most, like you get a quarter, your lesser loved sibling gets like an eighth or a half. It's kind of weird though that they make the people at the crematorium work butt naked, because that's what they do with people who are packaging up coke, at least. So yeah, a couple other things I've been thinking about recently, not really fully fleshed out, but every day when I leave work, there's this lady who is sitting in her car at like 6:45 p.m. at the parking lot of Dick's Sporting Goods, and she's just eating a bag of Wendy's. Every single day I leave work, and she's just sitting in her car eating Wendy's. And my first thought was, I don't even think there's a Wendy's on Lancaster in Dick's Sporting Goods. Like, why is she transporting Wendy's to Dick's to consume? Like, does she have a place to go? It's a nice car. I'm assuming she doesn't live in it, but maybe. Maybe her home is a 2024 Subaru Forester. I don't know. But then I was like, no, like Wendy's is like a quarter mile up the street. Okay, I guess it makes sense. But I don't know. I was just thinking it's very funny, like how some people will buy a bunch of fast food and then like instead of just sitting in the restaurant and eating it, or parking in the parking lot of the restaurant, they're like driving down the street. Like, where should I eat this? Oh yeah, I'll go to Dick's. That seems like the perfect place for my Frosty, for my biggie bag. Other than that, I've been thinking a lot of like really topical stuff, or about a lot of really topical and trendy things lately, like the Bible. And so I was thinking, like, what if Judas was really just jealous of Jesus? Like, what if he was just a really like bad hacky 2-bit magician, and he's like, over here is one hand and over here is the other, and then along comes this guy who literally walks on water and like turns water into wine, and Judas is just like, I was gonna be the Houdini of my age. I mean, I guess he wouldn't know who Houdini was, but so he goes to Pontius Pilate, and he's like, hey man, we gotta do something about this guy. I'm not gonna get a residency in Rome if this keeps up. Can we do something about this? I wonder if he ever got booked after the crucifixion. that coming back to life thing really made Judas look even more like a hack, if anything. Something else I think is kind of funny. I'm learning Spanish. I know Spanish, but still learning it too. Grew up speaking English, you guessed it. But when I can't think of a word in English now, I'm just like, I can't remember the word in English, and people don't think I'm an idiot. They think I'm just like bilingual, which is pretty cool. But there's a lot of words that are like similar in both languages. They're called cognates, so it's a word that has the same meaning and same sounds in both language. And one good example of a cognate is like excitado, right? So excitado means like excited. And so I, being like a guy who's just trying to learn a new language, I'll use cognates like as crutches. It turns out though that the word excitado in Spanish does mean excited, but it means it in a very specific way. It means sexually excited. And so it is probably not appropriate to tell like your children patients that you're very excited to see them. Emocionado is the correct word, you know. I was wondering why parents were looking at me weird at the end of visits, but yeah, we cleared that up pretty quickly. Security was only minimally involved. Anyways, I think that's about 5 minutes, so thanks.